I've now been to live tapings of Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, and Trevor Noah. Here's how they stack up. Okay, so first up, we've got the venues. Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers tape at the Comcast building at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, better known as 30 Rock. And both of them are in pretty nice studios. So Jimmy Fallon tapes in Studio 6B.
From Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center in the heart of New York City,
which is about 3,700 square feet. Seth Meyers tapes in Studio 8G, which is about 2,300 square feet. And that's cool because you get to walk past the SNL Studio 8H on your way into Seth Meyers' studio. And those studios are named for the floors that they're on, so Seth Meyers is on the 8th floor, Jimmy Fallon's on the 6th floor. Stephen Colbert tapes in the Ed Sullivan Theater, which is right on the north end of Times Square. And the Ed Sullivan Theater is a theater in the truest sense of the word, so whereas Jimmy and Seth kind of have risers that go down to the studio floor, when you're at Colbert, you're sitting in auditorium seats and there's a stage up above you. Really ornate decorations on the ceiling and all over. It's a really cool venue. There are 400 seats in the theater, which from what I've read is the largest audience in late night television. Okay, and then Trevor Noah used to tape at a Comedy Central studio over on 11th Ave, but they've since moved to the Viacom CBS studio over at 1515 Broadway. I don't know what their new setup is like, but the old building was kind of just like a warehouse and they had built the studio inside. Still pretty cool to see. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the guest experience. I would say that the process itself across all 4 shows involves a lot of waiting because they want to make sure that the audience is there in plenty of time to fill the seats and be ready so that the show can tape on schedule. Now at NBC, I would describe the pages there and the customer service as kind of the gold standard. It's like the Disney World of these 4. Very professional, very nice. They take you up to this waiting room with cushioned seats called the Peacock Lounge, and they're moving you through in a way that doesn't make it feel like you're waiting for that long. I would say kind of in contrast, the Comedy Central experience was a huge step down where kind of the interns and people working were in like jeans and t-shirts and kind of just giving you orders, and there was a lot of standing around. They kind of packed us into this lobby area and then we went into the studio. And then Colbert, I'd say, is kind of somewhat in the middle. There's like somewhat decent customer service. You're waiting outside, then you're waiting inside. Not too bad. I would also say at all of them, a page or an intern tries to pump the crowd up in the various stages of waiting. And also at all 4 of them, once you get inside the studio, there's a warm-up comedian. And their whole deal is that they kind of just ask audience members questions until they find something to make fun of. And I don't know if this was just because we were the first show back since COVID, but at Late Night with Seth, they threw out hats and t-shirts. And I was actually able to catch this free hat, so that's awesome. Okay, I want to talk about regulars and guests. So at the Tonight Show, the in-house band is The Roots with Questlove and Tariq Trotter, which is really, really cool to see in person. Steve Higgins also serves as Jimmy's announcer and kind of sidekick throughout the first part of the show. And on Jimmy Fallon, you can always count on there to be a musical guest. Now during COVID, those were pre-recorded, so you didn't get to see them in studio. And then Jimmy also has those games and lighthearted segments that I think are unique to the Tonight Show. And I'd also say it's probably the least politically oriented of those 4 shows. And then over at Late Night, Seth Meyers' in-house band is called the 8G Band, and it's led by Fred Armisen on drums, so it's really fun to see him play and for him and Seth to interact throughout the show. Recently, Seth Meyers has also started making his writers and crew part of the show, which is really fun to watch, like Shoemaker and Wally the cue card guy, who actually wrote this cue card right here. No joke. Amber Ruffin is also a member of Seth's writing staff, and she occasionally has her own segments, and you can always count on Seth to do a closer look. Over at The Late Show, the house band is called Stay Human, and it's led by John Batiste, who is super talented. I actually ended up sitting really close to his parents in the audience when we went to the show. Admittedly, I probably know the least about The Late Show, but I know that there is a repeated segment that you'll see called Meanwhile. And then The Daily Show is kind of a different feel. They don't have like a sidekick or an announcer or a band, but there is a cast of correspondents like Jordan Klepper or Roy Wood Jr. or Desi Lydic. Although I will say when we were there, their features were pre-taped, so they weren't actually there in studio. Okay, let's talk about host interactions. So Jimmy Fallon comes up and takes questions from the audience in the breaks between segments, which is really cool. I know pre-pandemic he would run up the stairs and give high fives to the audience. I don't think he's doing that currently because of COVID, but that's really awesome. I will say that Jimmy Fallon feels like he's always like on. Like he's such a performer, it doesn't necessarily feel like he's relaxed and hanging out with the audience. Seth Meyers, on the other hand, he also takes audience questions, and I feel like he is so chill. He's not wearing suits anymore. He walked up into the audience, he took questions. He was really cool about the whole thing. Stephen Colbert quickly took a couple questions at the beginning. I think that was short, partly because it was one of their first shows back in studio. And you're also a little bit removed from him because you're down below and he's up on stage. And then Trevor, this was really unique. Normally the host doesn't come out until the cameras are rolling. Trevor came out before the show just to say what's up to the crowd, and he was really chill. I was like blown away by how smart he is. I think he's one of the most brilliant brilliant people I've ever seen perform. All right, and then you also get varied experiences after the show. So at NBC, they kind of spit you out through the gift shop, and they hand you a 10% off coupon, which is kind of funny because they're trying to squeeze money out of you on the way out the door. But I do think the NBC shop is a cool experience if you've never been before. When you leave Colbert, there's no gift shop. They kind of just file you right out onto the street. But I will say, as we were leaving, one of the guests from the show was getting into her car. So it's kind of cool to see her, you know, like out in the wild. And I think NBC is kind of intentionally sheltered away. Like everything is really neatly packaged. There's the audience experience, which is totally separate from what happens behind the scenes. Although I will say there is the side entrance to 30 Rock on 49th Street, and that's where I've run into a bunch of cast members from SNL, and I think guests from the shows come out to catch their ride on that sidewalk as well, if you want to check that out. And then Comedy Central, yeah, we just kind of left the building, no gift shop or anything like that, very low key. Okay, all that being said, here is my official recommendation to you. I think Trevor Noah is by far the most fascinating host. The dude has an incredible life story. He speaks like a dozen languages, so quick on his feet, very funny. And interestingly, that was the only show that allowed us to use our phones to take pictures inside the studio. Everywhere else is really strict about that and will kick you out if they even see you with your phone out at all. But I would say the best overall experience is going to The Tonight Show. Jimmy is super talented, not only comedically, but also musically. There's the whole Disney customer service type experience with NBC, which I think is incredible. Being inside 30 Rock just kind of has this magic to it. So if you only have one shot, I would recommend trying to get tickets for Jimmy Fallon. But obviously, if one of these is your favorite show, go try to see that one because all of them were absolutely incredible. I've also had the privilege of seeing SNL, and that was by far my favorite experience, but I feel like that's in a different category entirely. If you're interested, I have videos about how to get tickets to see SNL, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and Stephen Colbert, and I'll link those right here as well as in the description below. And if you found this helpful, I hope you'll consider subscribing by clicking right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.